and get rid of those CO2 pockets, make sure it's all clean and ready for Bob and Doug. He closed it shortly after just to make sure no FOD or foreign objects, anything were to float in there that would inhibit any hatch opening process today. One of the next milestones for Chris Cassidy will be to open up that hatch. He's got some cameras, you see, placed within that node. We'll get some good views of the hatch opening and welcoming Bob and Doug here in just about an hour. A big moment in history today, May 31st, 2020. Just on the other side of that hatch, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley have successfully arrived at the International Space Station. Still a couple of milestones to get through. Before we can open up that hatch, it's going to take some time. First, pressurizing the vestibule in between the station and Dragon. We'll bring that up to pressure. It's going to take some time for that pressure to stabilize. Of course, the temperature within that vestibule causes a little bit of swing, so we'll just wait for that to pressurize or to stabilize before opening up that hatch. Here in Mission Control Houston, Flight Director Zeb Scoville welcoming the director of the NASA Johnson Space Center, Mark Geyer. We'll have a few other VIPs here in the room to welcome Bob and Doug once they get through that hatch. Now again, this repressurization and hatch opening process is going to take some time. You see now we're going to have some intermittent losses with the communication from the International Space Station. You're seeing now the International Space Station Flight Control Room led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville. Just a handover of some of those audio and visual communication shortly. Might lose them intermittently throughout the repressurization process, but the teams here will be monitoring all of the procedures. Again, pressurizing that vestibule and eventually getting to that hatch opening. From right to left there, seated, you see Flight Director Zeb Scoville. It was he who was leading the teams for both the launch of Bob and Doug over at the Cape. He was leading the teams here in Mission Control Houston. You just saw the Johnson Space Center Director Mark Geyer walk off to the side. Seated next to Zeb Scoville, Joshua Kutrick. He is one of the members of the most recent class of astronauts, the class of 2017. Canadian Space Agency astronaut, went through candidate training and officially became an astronaut just recently. Again, a few milestones to get through to that hatch opening. First, the International Space Station attitude control has been successfully switched from control moment gyro only control, enabling some of the thrusters on the International Space Station. We also just received word that Dragon is successfully receiving power.
ISS power connection has been established.
And there you have it. Dragon is successfully receiving power from the International Space Station.
And Dragon copies on Dragon to ground that power has been established. Just let us know when we should make a hardline comm check.
We will, Co. Thank you.
For those of you just joining us, you are getting a live look at NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, commander of the International Space Station, doing some of the prep work to open up the hatch and get ready to welcome Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley aboard the International Space Station. They launched successfully yesterday at 2:22 p.m. Central Time, 3:22 p.m. Eastern, and docked successfully with a contact and capture just a little bit ago at 9:16 a.m. Central Time, 10:16 Eastern. Now, some of the milestones to get that hatch open have already taken place. First, attitude control. For some of the docking sequence, for the initial contact and capture, attitude control was on Russian thrusters. That was moved to control moment gyros for hard mate, making sure that everything lined up and we got those ready-to-hook indicators green before driving those hooks. The attitude control has since been switched to enable some thrusters on the International Space Station. We did get confirmation of good power being delivered from ISS to the Dragon. Next will be to test some hard line communication between Dragon and the International Space Station.
Dragon and Station. It's Houston calling on the big loop. We're prepared and getting ready to transition the comm system to hardline, at which time we're going to do a couple comm checks. We just want to make sure everybody's on board with that and aware. So Dragon first, maybe let me know if you hear this and if you're good with that plan.
Yeah, Houston, Endeavor on the big loop. We had you loud and clear.
Houston Station copies and concurs.
Okay, Endeavor and Station, we have it loud and clear on RF right now. We are putting it in work now, so transitioning comm system to hardline, and we'll call you back for voice checks momentarily.
Endeavor copies.
This is Mission Control Houston. The voice you just heard was Capcom Joshua Kutrick from here in Mission Control Houston, relaying through the big loop that's integrated communications with Dragon and the International Space Station, just taking us through those procedures until we get to hatch opening. Now there's an umbilical connection with Dragon, connecting Dragon to the International Space Station. We did get good confirmation that power is flowing from the International Space Station to Dragon. Next, we'll be proceeding with some of the communications checks. The big loop established on the C2V2 common communications for visiting vehicle through some of the last legs of the rendezvous and docking of Dragon to the International Space Station. We'll switch that over to hardline communications, testing that out here shortly. We're going to get some good views of station today. You see Chris Cassidy working inside Node 2. Just on the other side is the hatch. That hatch is separating between the International Space Station and the pressurized mating adapter. One more hatch to go after that. That hatch opens up to the Dragon hatch with Bob Benkin and Doug Hurley on the other side. Just surrounding Chris Cassidy from this view, you can see a series of cameras. We're going to get some great views from Node 2 there on the left, a couple of high-definition cameras. On the right, a 360 VR camera. Part of an initiative to engage viewers and provide views that from the International Space Station that have never been seen before. We'll get to see some of those 360-degree views later after they're configured and stitched on the ground, now being recorded during this historic moment today, May 31st, 2020.
Affirmative, we are on the same page. Those steps in the execution note are all that's needed.
In work.
You're getting a live look at Chris Cassidy aboard the International Space Station. Just in front of him is that 360-degree camera. He's got cameras situated all over Node 2, pointing right towards that hatch. On the other side, we'll be welcoming Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley after pressurization of the vestibule, and we'll start beginning hatch opening after that.
Open.
Yeah, we copy MPEV open, Chris.
Another handover of communication from the tracking and data relay satellites, providing video and audio communication from the International Space Station, now integrated with the Dragon power. Still looking towards some of those hard-line communication checks. Again, we'll lose communication intermittently as the International Space Station flies 269 statute miles.
Station Houston on 2 for Chris. We're go for open on the Node 2 forward hatch.
Regaining some of that video from International Space Station, Chris Cassidy given the go to open that Node 2 forward hatch. Again, he opened it a little bit earlier today to allow some of the station air to mix into the pressurized mating adapter. There it is. Now again, there's a few more hatches to open until we are able to welcome Bob and Doug aboard the International Space Station. You're looking through the hatch into the pressurized mating adapter. There's another hatch down there through the pressurized mating adapter that opens up to the International Docking Adapter.
Houston on 3. Hey, Josh, there was zero on DPDT, and the Node 2 forward hatch is open.
And Chris, we copy Node 2 forward hatch open. We concur your go for the next yellow activity. That's your 1515 activity. It's step 2 in 2.102 Crew Dragon ISS arrival through hatch opening. Basically, you're going to cycle the 8-pass equalization valve.
And Dragon SpaceX on Dragon to ground. If desired, reference procedure 4.400 to monitor vestibule pressurization.
And copies. Small.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground for 4.012. We've completed up to section 5, and we've got a timer started for 1 hour.
Copy, completed through section 5, and your suits are drying, and you have started a timer for 1 hour. With that, do we have your permission to come back on board?
Get you back on board.
We copy. We are go to come back on board. And with that, you are go to perform sections 1 through 3 of 4.400. We do recommend deferring your step 2.1 for the waste system flush until closer to hatch opening. In section 3, as you are performing your inventory, please collect all your food and water bottle trash and consolidate it into the 2 trash bags within their common bags in location 18. You will transfer the plastic bags containing this trash to ISS for disposal during a scheduled activity after ISS ingress. And do note that you are welcome to defer this inventory until after you eat your meal that is scheduled for right about now.
Okay, Anna, if you could give us 5 minutes before you guys come back on board. We do have some clothing config to complete. Understand we've got to go for sections 1, 2, and 3 of 4.400, and we will consolidate our trash into the bags provided in location 18. And we'll defer the docked waste configuration, section 2 of 4.400, until it gets closer to hatch opening.
Station, we copy 1507.
We copy, and we will wait 5 minutes before coming on board, and we'll check with you before we do so if we don't hear from you first.
Copy, ready.
Thanks, Anna.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're listening to crews on board the International Space Station and Dragon prepare for opening the hatch. You're seeing Chris Cassidy aboard the International Space Station already opened the hatch 2, the pressurized mating adapter just below that hatchway you see at the center of the screen here. On the other side of the hatch is the hatchway to the International docking adapter. On the other side of that, the recently docked Crew Dragon. Vestibule pressurization is underway. This will equalize the pressure between Dragon and the International Space Station. Once it does come up to pressurization, it will take some time to equalize that pressure because of the temperature difference in the vestibule. Just take some time to stabilize.
Dragon, Endeavor, it's Houston. Calling you on hardline now for a voice check. How do you read? Endeavor, it's Houston calling Space to Ground 2 via hardline now for a voice check. Do you read?
Houston, Cotton. Dragon voice check. How the leaders counting 121, 122, 123, 124, 125. Houston station, space to ground 2.
And Station Houston on 2, Anatoly, we hear you loud and clear. We're going to swap a couple minor things here and try Dragon again. We're just still trying to get calm with Dragon. Stand by 1.
Dragon again. Dragon FM, voice check. How the leaders counting 121, 122, 123, 124, 125.
And Station Houston on 2. Everybody, we'll just stand by for a few minutes. We're going to try to raise Dragon by another means. Stand by.
Stand by.
And Endeavor, it's Houston calling on Dragon to ground 1. We're trying to reach you via hardline. Just not sure if you're receiving it or not. Let us know at your convenience.
And Houston from Endeavor, we're hearing quite a bit of echo on the other loop that appears to be connected. It's unintelligible, but we do have you loud and clear on the Dragon to ground.
And Endeavor, Houston on Dragon to ground. Thanks for that. Very helpful. We'll take a look, and we have you loud and clear on Dragon to ground as well. So we're gonna continue to work it and try to give you a call back in the next few minutes on hardline.
Endeavor copies. Thanks.
This is Mission Control Houston working through the steps to pressurize the vestibule. We did have confirmation that vestibule pressurization was underway. We do have power flowing from the International Space Station to Dragon after it docked for a contact and capture at 9:16 a.m. Central Time, 10:16 a.m. Eastern, just earlier this morning. A few other milestones to reach. We need good audio communication hard-lined through the umbilical where Dragon is currently docked on the other side of that hatch, providing now power, just making sure those hard-line communications are intact. Working through that as we count down towards the milestones of opening that hatch.
Dragon on Dragon to ground.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and in section 1 of 4.400, the tablet state of charge are 66 for Doug's and 32 for mine.
Copy. 66 for Doug, 32 for Bob. And do we have your permission to come back on board with video now?
Yeah, go ahead and come on board. We just may have to take it down at some point, as you might imagine, but come on board.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Station Houston on 3 for Chris. Your convenience, but just an update on the comm status.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Chris, you've probably been able to tell we've run into some minor issues trying to get hardline established, so we're working that here, and we're going to be reattempting the comm checks as soon as we think we're go. I'll give you a heads up on that. And then regarding stuff, just get aheads. I was going to pass along to do the teardown from steps 3 and 4 in the approach monitoring, but I just saw it go gray. So have you done that already?
Hold on just one second. Which one was that? Maybe I fat fingered the wrong procedure.
Yeah, no, it's subtle. So it's in the execution note for Dragon approach monitoring, as we were monitoring Dragon earlier in the day. Down in the execution note are the teardown steps.
I'm here in the cupola right now. I'll take care of it. It's not gray, but momentarily it will be.
Sounds good. And I'm also hearing on that we have done on the ground steps 1 through 4, so it's just 5 and 6 left for you in that teardown procedure.
Copy that. Rush on 3, steps 5 and 6 are complete in the teardown.
Copy, Chris. Thanks for that. And just about to hit the button and reattempt the hardline checks with Dragon.
Okay, copy.
Endeavor, it's Houston calling via hardline. Voice check. How do you read?
On station, say again.
And station standby, Endeavor. This is a call for Endeavor via hardline voice check. How do you read?
Houston, Endeavor, completely unreadable. It's skipping pretty badly.
And Endeavor, it's Houston on Dragon to ground. We heard your reply loud and clear. Understand we're still broken. We're working it. Thanks for the patience.
We got you, Josh. That's exactly the case. Thanks.
Dragon FM, voice check, how do you read me? Counting 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5.
We seem to have an issue still with COM 2 Dragon, so we'll just have you stand by. We'll let you know when we're ready to retry. Thanks for your patience.
Okay, call me on System Ground 1, please.
SpaceX Dragon on Dragon to ground for a timeline tag up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Anna, we're managing the collection of the used water bottles and other items as well as our meal, and just looking to understand a little bit better how closely we're to hatch opening or another timeline milestone. We're kind of running to the end of the tablet here with meal 5 that started about, 25 minutes ago or so, and so just wanting to understand how much time we've got in front of us.
In Dragon SpaceX, we estimate we are about an hour to Dragon hatch opening.
Copy that, Anna. Thanks for those words. It just helps us manage getting things done. And looks like you guys are on board. Welcome aboard, I guess, the integrated space station now, huh?
Indeed. Thank you so much. We're excited to be here.
Endeavor, Houston calling over hardline for a voice check. How do you read us now?
Houston or station from Endeavor. I'm not sure the location of that last call, but still quite a bit of skipping and unreadable.
And Endeavor, it's Houston, loud and clear on Dragon to ground. We heard your response, so we're in the same situation. We're hearing you, you're not hearing us. We have one more troubleshooting item that we're going to put in work now, so we'll give that a try and then maybe call it for the day. We'll let you know.
Endeavor copies. Thanks, Houston.
Endeavor, Houston calling via hardline for a final voice check. Do you have us now?
Houston, Dragon on the big loop. That was an improvement, but it's still completely unreadable.
And Endeavour, Houston, on Dragon to ground 1, we're still hearing you 5x5. Understand it was slightly improved. Were you able to read me at all, or is it unuseful?
Yeah, it was a slight improvement, but it's still unintelligible, almost every word. There was maybe one word that you could have sort of figured out, but that was about it.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. First time, obviously, and we think we're running into some interference issues, but we'll continue to take a look.
We copy, thanks.
This is Mission Control Houston. If you're tuning in to our coverage, you're getting a live look at the International Space Station Flight Control Room. You're hearing a lot of communications from the International Space Station, both from the space station side over space to ground. NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, International Space Station Commander, setting up for the hatch opening. You can see a series of cameras scattered around, ready to capture the best views of Bob and Doug coming through that hatch. We did get confirmation just shortly that we did have good pressurization of the vestibule. It'll be about 10 minutes to perform a series of leak checks. Again, that pressure needs to stabilize. The thermal conditions make it swing just a little bit, so just waiting for that to stabilize before those leak checks are finalized. That underway within the next 10 minutes. We do have communications settled in the hardline connection between International Space Station and Dragon. You can see from the inside of Dragon now, the crew doffed or took off their suits, just getting a few things packed up before they eventually open up the hatch after that pressurization is equalized between Space Station and Dragon.